Hello everyone, my name is Kajsa Resare Salin and I've been in charge of Work Package 3 and the Swedish UNISECO case study, which has looked into diversification of Swedish meat and dairy farms to produce more food per hectare of land use. With me here today is also Chiara Pia, who has worked on the policy aspects of our case. The Swedish case study consists of 10 farmers producing mainly beef and milk, and they're spread out across the country. All farms use substantial shares of their cropland to produce grass silage for feed, but they also all cultivate various cereals, mainly wheat, rye, and barley, that are used either as feed on the farm or are sold as livestock feed or for direct human consumption. Most of the farms in the case study are organic, and they are in different phases of agroecological transition with a slight clustering around the efficiency and input substitution phases, as you can see on the bottom side there. And as you can see on the map, Sweden is a long-stretched country, and the thin grey outline that you see on the right-hand side is actually Switzerland, to give you a slight idea of the size. And each red dot is a case study farm, and as you understand, they all have very diverse production conditions. And it's not only the climatic conditions that are different, but also the market conditions, because population is quite sparse in some areas and the agricultural sector is small, and overall the Swedish market is highly concentrated. Some of the sustainability issues that we address in this case are, as we all know, beef and milk are foods with a comparatively high climate impact per kilo product, mainly because of methane emissions from ruminants. And since methane is a potent greenhouse gas, the number of cattle, both globally and in Europe, need to reduce in order to meet agreed climate goals. And there's also a growing challenge to feed the global population without a net expansion of cropland, since land use is a main driver behind biodiversity loss at global level. In Sweden, there's an abundance of cropland, but 75% is currently being used to grow feed. And we have quite favorable conditions to contribute to global food security using sustainable practices. The farming sector in Sweden is, however, highly economically strained, and the farms are growing bigger and fewer, especially dairy farms. And this is creating sustainability issues because cattle are being centered in the south of the country, while there's a lack of ruminants in the north, for example, which can impact the possibilities to graze, for example, biodiversity-rich semi-natural pastures. To address these multifaceted challenges, the key dilemma of this case study has been to investigate the challenges and possibilities to diversify specialized livestock farms to include more crops for direct human consumption, while simultaneously integrating more agroecological principles and improving economic sustainability. Throughout the project, we identified two clusters of barriers for diversification. One cluster revolves around lack of knowledge for growing crops for direct human consumption, lack of networks and cooperation for learning, and strong traditions around meat and milk. And this can be summarized in the quote that, "We have reared livestock for 7 generations. Where should I even start?" The second cluster of barriers revolve around limited sales opportunities, which is partly caused by the high market concentration. There's also low profitability, as I mentioned, and there's a lack of risk sharing by value chain actors. And this can be summarized as, I can grow the crops, but who will buy them? Being able to diversify your farm depends not only on what happens on the farm, but also greatly on what happens throughout the value chain. Therefore, in our case study, we've had a range of local, regional, and national scale actors involved in our multi-actor platform. And they come from food industry, food retail, farmers associations, networks, innovators, and product developers, and of course also farmers themselves and us as researcher. And to foster diversification and larger integration of crops and livestock, our key agroecological practice has been increased cultivation of crops for direct human consumption and a co-constructed payment scheme to foster sustainable practices. And this has been tested in practice, and 8 out of 10 farms actually started growing more food for direct human consumption. A key result from the case study is the substantial potential to grow more crops for direct human consumption across a wide range of settings and conditions around the country. And we calculated how many people can be fed per hectare for 4 different nutritional sources before and after the implementation of our agro-ecological practice. And in the second year of assessment, which was either 2019 or 2020, the farms could on average deliver enough calories to feed 4.2 people per hectare compared to 2.8 people per hectare in the first year of assessment, which was 2017 or 2018. And that's actually an increase by 50%. They also provided on average more protein and fat per hectare after they implemented this diversification strategy. And the reduction in complete protein, which you can see in the graph there, reflects a slight decrease in meat and milk production. There are both synergies and trade-offs that can follow increased cultivation and sales of crops for direct human consumption. They can contribute higher profit margins and be one of several sources of income at farm level. It can also mean that abandoned land is being taken into cultivation yet again. It can be one step in improving the balance between livestock and crops to, for example, cover fertilization needs, but also to reduce stock densities and reduce the need for a purchased concentrate feed. Having a more diversified production can also mean that you take steps towards having a more balanced crop rotation, for example, including leguminous maize. There are, of course, also some trade-offs that are possible. One is, for example, that there could be longer working hours for the farmer because there are more different forms of production on the farm. It could mean higher risk and potential losses in the case where farmers are not able to find buyers for their crops. And it can actually also cause increased feed imports to the farm. For example, if increased crop cultivation cannot be coupled with the reduced livestock numbers because the livestock are tightly interlinked with subsidy levels. A key lesson learned from the case study is that there is substantial but varied potential to grow more crops for direct human consumption. This, however, depends on that farmers need support in transitioning, both in terms of increased knowledge, networking opportunities, but also social support and higher payments for crops. It also needs longer-term cooperation between farmers and buyers or industry actors, and there needs to be more local food processing to increase the sales opportunities for farmers. Last but not least, there's also a need for a national policy focus on and a specific strategy for diversification to increase the production of, for example, protein crops, vegetables, and fruit, which lie in line with the need to transform both production and consumption towards sustainability. And before I finish, I would just like to tell you that as a concrete outcome from the Swedish UNISECO case study, the payment scheme that was tested last year on the case study farms, our agro-ecological practice, is being developed further in collaboration with the company Oatly, which has participated in the Swedish multi-actor platform. Researchers, advisors, and farmers have collaborated on developing a list of sustainability improving practices, for example, to have a healthy crop rotation, that if implemented at farm level will warrant a higher price for your crop. And this is a really good way of food industry participating and taking responsibility for the public goods provided by farms, and also actually sharing the risks of working to improve sustainability at farm level. And the concept is being tested live this year. All the UNISECO farms have been invited to participate, but we're also very happy to learn that it's also being expanded to more farms. So thank you all for listening. Please don't hesitate to get in touch if you have more questions about diversification of ruminant farms in Sweden. Thank you.